I pretended to sleep, heard my son's wife whisper, "His money's almost ours." Then my plan began. The words slithered into my ear like venom from a serpent I'd welcomed into my garden, and in that instant, every fracture in my carefully constructed life cracked wide open. I didn't stir, didn't gasp. Instead, I let the rage bloom cold and calculated in my chest, a storm gathering over the Hudson that no one saw coming. It was a Tuesday night in late October, the kind where the autumn chill seeps through the triple-paned windows of my Upper East Side brownstone, no matter how high you crank the thermostat. The leaves outside were turning that bruised shade of crimson, like blood under skin, and the city hummed its indifferent lullaby, sirens wailing distant, taxis honking like geese in heat. Inside, though, it was all forced warmth. The clink of ice in tumblers, the low murmur of jazz from the vintage record player I'd bought in the village back when vinyl was king and my husband was still alive to spin it with me. My name is Diana Hargrove, and at 68, I'd long since learned that money doesn't buy loyalty, but it sure as hell rents it. Widowed for 15 years after Richard's heart gave out mid-deal on the trading floor, classic Wall Street exit, I'd clawed my way from grieving trophy wife to iron-fisted philanthropist, turning his fortune into foundations that polished my name while padding my accounts. The Hargrove Family Trust was my empire now, a sprawling beast of real estate, stocks, and shadowy investments that kept the wolves at bay. Or so I'd thought. My son, Ethan, was the apple that fell farthest from the tree. 35, handsome in that preppy, Ivy League way. Princeton 12, Wharton MBA. He'd always been the soft one, the dreamer who preferred TED Talks to takeovers. I'd bailed him out more times than I cared to count. The startup flop in Silicon Valley that drained a cool $1 million. The divorce from his college sweetheart that cost another half just to keep the tabloids quiet. But I'd done it with a smile, because that's what mothers do. Or at least, that's what I convinced myself. Then came Lila. She swept into our lives 4 years ago like a summer squall, blonde, ambitious, with legs that went on forever and a laugh that could disarm a jury. A corporate lawyer from some firm in Midtown, she met Ethan at a gala I threw for the Arts Council. I liked her at first. Hell, I pushed for it. She was sharp, the kind of woman who could keep my boy in line, maybe even whip him into shape. We bonded over martinis at Bimmelman's, trading barbs about the pretentious crowd. "Darling," she'd say, clinking her glass to mine, "you're the only one here who knows real power isn't in the boardroom. It's in the bedroom." We'd laugh, and I'd think, finally, someone who gets it. But that night, as I feigned slumber in my armchair, the fire popping like gunfire in the silence, I heard the truth uncoil. Ethan had stepped out to take a call, something about a delayed flight for his latest business trip to Miami, and Lila thought I was out cold, medicated from the migraine I'd nursed all evening. She'd poured herself another scotch, the good stuff from Islay, and sidled up to the mirror over the mantel, practicing her smile like an actress prepping lines. "God, he's such a mark," she muttered to her reflection, but it was the next words that hit like a gut punch. She glanced toward the hallway where Ethan had vanished, then leaned in closer, as if the glass might betray her. "His money's almost ours. Just play the long game, Lila. Widow's loaded, but the kid's the key. One more nudge, and the trust flips to us. His money, not our money, not the family's. His, Ethan's, and by extension, mine, the seed money I'd planted, the roots I'd nurtured." But it was the casual venom in her voice, the way she licked her lips like a cat with cream, that ignited something primal in me. Betrayal isn't just a word, it's a blade, twisting slow. And in that moment, as the jazz saxophone wailed Benny Goodman's Ghost, I decided she'd pay. Not with tears or tantrums, but with the exquisite precision of a woman who's buried her share of bodies, metaphorical, of course. This was America. After all, we don't do messy. We do calculated ruin. The plan crystallized in fragments over the next few days, pieced together like a mosaic in the quiet hours before dawn, when the city sleeps and grudges fester. First, reconnaissance. I needed proof, something ironclad to wield like a gavel. Lila was good, too good. She'd wormed her way into the family with surgical charm, volunteering at my women's shelter downtown, co-chairing the holiday auction, even suggesting we update the trust to protect Ethan's future. I'd signed off on the revisions last spring, blind trust in her glossy reassurances. But now, every clause screamed sabotage. I started small. Hired a discreet PI out of a nondescript office in Hell's Kitchen, ex-NYPD, the kind who blends into crowds like cigarette smoke. His name was Marco, grizzled and gravel-voiced, with a fee that could fund a small coup. "What am I chasing, Mrs. H?" he'd asked over black coffee at a diner on Ninth. "Ghosts," I'd replied, stirring sugar I didn't need. The kind that wear Louboutins and smile for the camera. He delivered within a week. A dossier thicker than a Tolstoy, bound in plain craft paper. Emails Lila had scrubbed, but not deep enough. Correspondence with a divorce attorney in Connecticut, outlining asset division strategies that painted Ethan as the meal ticket and me as the obstacle. Bank records showing siphoned funds funneled to an offshore account in the Caymans, masked as charity contributions to a shell foundation she'd set up. And the kicker, transcripts of calls to her ex, a sleazy hedge fund manager upstate, where she bragged about inheriting the old bag's empire once the boys hooked. But the real poison? A hidden truth from 15 years back, one-eyed buried deeper than Richard's ashes in the Hudson. Ethan wasn't just soft, he was shattered. Back in '09, during the crash, he'd cooked the books at his first gig, a junior analyst role at Richard's firm. Embezzlement, small scale but sloppy, 50 grand skim to cover gambling debts from a Vegas bender. Richard found out, shielded him, took the fall himself. A quiet resignation, whispers of creative accounting, but it ate at him, contributed to the stress that stopped his heart. I'd covered the restitution, silenced the lawyers, and sworn Ethan to secrecy. "Your father's ghost is heavy enough," I'd told him. "Don't make it a chain." Lila knew. How? Ethan, drunk on anniversary champagne last year, had spilled it in a rare moment of vulnerability, and she'd filed it away like a loaded gun. Rage? Oh, it simmered. But revenge? That's art. I began with whispers of my own. An anonymous tip to the board of her firm, nothing direct, just enough to trigger an internal audit. Irregularities in pro bono billing. The email read, attached to a redacted invoice Marco had forged from her digital trail. By Friday, she was sweating through depositions, her flawless bob frizzing under the fluorescent glare. Ethan noticed first. "Mom, Lila's been off. Late nights, snapping at me. We were at brunch in the Hamptons, my summer escape, all whitecaps and white lies, sipping mimosas on the veranda while gulls screamed overhead." "Marriages have ebbs, darling," I said, patting his hand, my smile a perfect mask. Inside, I savored the irony, the boy I'd protected now shielding the viper. But Lila was cunning, a chameleon in stilettos. She flipped the script that weekend, showing up at my door with tear-streaked cheeks and a bottle of youth. "Diana, I think someone's targeting me at work. It's like they're digging into our life." She collapsed onto the sofa, mascara running like black rivers. "Ethan told me about the past, the accident with his dad. I swore I'd never say, but do you think it's connected?" The gall. She was testing waters, probing for weakness, her eyes flicking to the family portrait above the fireplace. Richard, Ethan as a boy, me, smiling, oblivious. I poured her a glass, let her ramble, then dropped the bomb casual as cream in coffee. Secrets have a way of surfacing, don't they? Like bodies in the river. Her flinch was poetry, but she recovered, flipping again, leaning in, conspiratorial. "We could fight this together. Protect the family. The trust. It's vulnerable. I could help tighten it up." Vulnerable. The word hung like smoke. By Monday, she drafted amendments, clauses that funneled control to Ethan, and by proxy, her, upon incapacity. Incapacity, as if I were the doddering fool. No, my plan escalated. Marco tailed her to a rendezvous in a Soho loft. Her ex, the hedge guy, Tommy Voss. "Bug-planted, audio crystal. The old lady's onto us," she hissed, pacing amid exposed brick and abstract art that screamed trying too hard. We accelerate. Push the kid to confront her about the '09 mess. Guilt trip him into the changes. Tommy's laugh was a bark. "And if she pushes back? You poison the well." "Not poison," Lila purred. "Just nudge. A little something in her pills. Accident. Heart like his daddy's." My blood iced. Not murder, my line was ruin. Not body bags, but the intent? It fractured something in me. Ethan, my boy, collateral in her chess game. The antagonist wasn't just cunning. She was a hydra, head sprouting with every strike. I decided then, mat. Flip her world inside out. First, the leak. I funneled the dossier to a blogger I knew from the society pages. Ruthless Ruth. They called her a digital piranha who feasted on elite scandals. Anonymous source. The post went viral by noon. Heiress-in-law's dirty deals, embezzlement or family feud. Screenshots blurred just enough to sting. Headlines screaming Hargrove heirs bride in hot water. Lila spun it masterfully at first. Press conference in a power suit, voice quivering with feigned outrage. Smear campaign by jealous rivals. My family stands united. Ethan at her side, pale but nodding, his arm a prop around her waist. United. The word tasted like ash. That night, I confronted him alone, over steak at Peter Luger, his favorite, the old-school Brooklyn joint where waiters still carve at your table like surgeons. Son, I said, knife poised over the porterhouse. What's the price of silence these days? He froze, fork midway to mouth. Mom? What? The '09 thing. Lila knows. And she's using it. I slid a printout across the linen. Her email to Tommy. Redacted names, but the threat clear. His face crumpled, color draining like wine from a tipped glass. She said it was our secret. To build trust. Tears welled, unmanly in the dim light, but real. I love her, Mom. But this. Love's a drug, Ethan. And she's overdosing you. I let him stew, the sizzle of meat underscoring the silence. He left broken, promising to talk to her. But Lila flipped again, charming, contrite. By week's end, she'd convinced him it was my paranoia, grief talking from Richard's anniversary. They moved into the guest wing of my brownstone for support, her presence a daily thorn. Tension coiled like a spring. I upped the ante, altered the trust via my attorney in the dead of night, clauses that revoked her beneficiary status on moral turpitude. Proof? The bugged calls, now in a safe deposit box downtown. And for spice, I planted seeds with the shelter board, rumors of Lila's volunteer, ours being a front for client poaching. She caught wind, cornered me in the kitchen one dawn, coffee brewing bitter as our stares. You're destroying us, Diana. For what? Control? Ethan's my husband. Yours? I laughed, low and lethal, handing her a mug. Like a purse you stole from the rack. He was mine first, my blood, my burden. Her eyes narrowed, the mask slipping. Burden? You mean the lie you both live? Covering for a thief? Richard died for that. The slap of truth stung, but I fired back. And you? Profiting off ghosts. Get out. She didn't. Instead, escalation. Anonymous letters to the DA's office, hinting at my complicity in the '09 cover-up. Controversy brewed. Hargrove scandal. Matriarch's dark secret. Tabloids frothing. Donors pulling from the foundation. Ethan split, caught in the crossfire, pleading in my study amid leather-bound ledgers. Stop this, both of you. It's tearing me apart. Tearing. Apartment. The climax brewed that Halloween night, a gala at the Met, black tie, masks optional, but pretense mandatory. I arrived in vintage Chanel, diamonds winking like accusations. Lila, radiant in red, clung to Ethan's arm, but her smile faltered when she saw me across the hall of mirrors. We collided in the Egyptian wing, catacombs of the elite, sarcophagi staring blind. Truce, she hissed, champagne flute trembling. No, I whispered, voice steel. Confession. She laughed, brittle. Or what? Ruin me? We're in too deep. You expose me, you expose him. The whole rotten core. The dilemma hit. Split loyalties, no clean hands. Expose her, bury Ethan. Let her win, lose my soul. Guests swirled oblivious, laughter echoing off obelisks. Then the twist. Marco's urgent call, voice crackling from the coat check. Boss, she's not the snake. It's Voss, using her as pawn. Those accounts? His laundering front. And the pills? He spiked her drink tonight. Leverage. Lila? Victim? The Hydra had heads I hadn't seen. Flipping one last time, I grabbed her wrist, pulled her into shadows. He's coming for you. Trust me once. Her eyes widened, terror real. Why help? Because blood's thicker than greed. And yours? It's on my hands now. We fled to the roof, city sprawl a glittering trap below. Voss waited in the limo, gun not drawn but implied. Confrontation exploded, words first, then scuffle. Ethan burst in, piecing it from my text, tackling Voss as sirens wailed, my anonymous 911. Cuffs clicked, truths spilled. Lila's complicity coerced, my cover-up cracked open. Charges flew, fraud, attempted murder, but in the fallout, Ethan chose rehab over resentment. Lila a plea deal for testimony. Me? The foundation crumbled, but I rebuilt smaller, sharper. Ending? Not happy, not tragic, just American. Gray as the dawn over the East River, where winners and losers blur in the fog. The morning after the Met debacle, sunlight sliced through the blinds like Judgment Day accusations, painting stripes across the Persian rug in my study. I hadn't slept, couldn't, with the echo of Voss's snarl in my ears and Lila's reluctant gratitude curdling in my gut. Ethan had crashed in the guest room, comatose from sedatives and shame, while Lila, well, she'd slipped out before dawn, a ghost in silk pajamas, leaving a note on the kitchen island. Thank you. But this isn't over. Not over. As if closure was a luxury we plebs could afford. I crumpled it, tossed it into the cold grate of the fireplace, and poured myself a bourbon neat. Breakfast of champions in this zip code. The city awoke grumpy, horns blaring from Madison Avenue, a reminder that life churns on, scandals be damned. But for the Hargroves, the machine had jammed, gears grinding rust from secrets long oiled over. Marco called at 9 sharp, his voice a Brooklyn rasp over the line. Paperwork's filed. Voss is singing like Sinatra. Names, dates, the works. Your girl's in the clear, mostly. Plea to accessory. Probation if she plays nice. She's not my girl. I snapped, but the bite lacked heat. Accessory. The word fit her like a knockoff gown. Close, but itchy. And Ethan? Kid's lawyered up. DA's offering immunity if he testifies against the old man. But Mrs. H, that '09 business? It's bubbling up. Reporters sniffing around the firm archives. Of course, the past isn't buried. It's compost, fertile for weeds. I hung up, stared at the family portrait on the wall. Richard's stern jaw, Ethan's boyish grin, my own eyes already holding this shadow. Betrayal's gift, it unearths graves you thought sealed. By noon, the wolves circled. My cell buzzed relentless. Board members from the foundation, donors with pitchfork voices, even cousin Beatrice from Connecticut, her nasal whine demanding. Explanations, Diana. The Chronicle says fraud. I let it ring, retreated to the solarium where orchids bloomed defiant, their petals a fragile fuck you to winter. There, amid the humid green, I plotted phase 2, not revenge now, but reclamation. Lila had cracked the facade. I'd rebuild and reinforce steel. Ethan emerged around 2, hollow-eyed, hair tousled like a prepubescent poet. Mom. One word, heavy as an anchor. He collapsed into a wicker chair, elbows on knees, staring at the terracotta floor as if it held maps to absolution. I handed him tea. Chamomile. No sugar, the way he liked as a boy nursing scraped knees. Talk. He did, halting at first, then torrent. Lila had confessed over midnight confessions in the limo post-gala. Voss, her ex from law school, had reeled her back in with promises of easy money during a rough patch. Ethan's startup flop, leaving them scraping by on my handouts. She said it was just consulting, he muttered, rubbing temples. Laundering through the shelter's books. Harmless. Harmless, I echoed, voice flat as the East River at low tide. Like jaywalking into felony. Guilt twisted his features. I told her about Dad. The cover-up. Thought it bonded us, shared sins. A bitter laugh. Turns out, it was ammo. The admission hung, acrid. I'd borne that sin for him. Nights forging signatures. Lunches with feds greased by Richard's Rolodex. A mistake, yes, but mine to own. Or so I'd thought. Now, it metastasized, infecting us all. But Voss, he threatened her. The pills were his idea, to frame you if she balked. Ethan's eyes met mine, pleading. She didn't want this, Mom. Not all of it. Sympathy stirred, unwanted, a traitor in my ribs. Lila, the villainess, recast as reluctant rook. Controversial? Hell yes. Part of me wanted to eviscerate her, another, to hug the mess we'd made. No heroes here, just survivors clawing from the rubble. Decide, Ethan, I said, setting my cup down with a clink like finality. Her or us. Blood's the only currency that doesn't depreciate. He left for her apartment that evening. a pied terra in Chelsea she'd kept for work. I didn't stop him. Free will's a bitch, but it's his. Instead, I dusted off the ledgers, the real ones hidden in a climate-controlled vault in Jersey. Time to audit the empire, excise the rot. The next week blurred into a frenzy of depositions and denials. Lila's plea hearing was a circus. Cameras flashing like strobe in a fever dream, her in a tailored Navy suit, hair pulled severe, looking every inch the penitent professional. She took the stand, voice steady. I was coerced. Greed blinded me, but family pulled me back. Family. The word landed like a grenade in my lap, where I sat front row, Ethan's hand limp in mine. The judge, a silver fox with a gavel like Thor's, nodded sagely. Probation, community service, back to the shelter, irony's sharpest blade. Voss. 15 years, federal time in Otisville, trading caviar dreams for concrete chow. But the twist lingered, festering. Post-hearing, as confetti of flashbulbs settled, Lila approached. Hesitant, heels clicking tentative on marble. Diana, can we talk? Ethan tensed, but I waved him off. Drive safe. I'll cab it. We ended up at a dive bar off Broadway. Neon buzzing O'Malley's, the kind where lawyers drown ethics in drafts. She ordered gin, straight. I stuck to soda, watching her unravel. I never meant for it to go this far. She started, swirling ice. Voss. He was my out from a shitty childhood. Trailer park in Ohio, mom on pills, dad doing time. Law school was supposed to be the escape. Pity prickled, unbidden, unfair. We all have ghosts, Lila. Doesn't license haunting others. She nodded, eyes glassy. Ethan told me everything. The '09. How you protected him. I envied that. My mom would have sold me out for a fix. The flip again, antagonist to ally? Or ploy? Her hand brushed mine, tentative. Let me make it right. The shelter, I can run it clean. Prove I'm not the monster. Controversial offer. Trust her? After the whispers, the schemes? But the alternative, banish her, watch Ethan fracture, felt like amputating my own limb. Prove it, I said finally. Actions, not alibis. She did, in fits. Mornings at the foundation, sleeves rolled, reconciling books she'd tainted. Evenings with Ethan, therapy sessions in a Park Avenue walk-up, unpacking the baggage we'd all packed. Me? I lurked, skeptical, but thawing. Thanksgiving loomed, turkey and tensions, and for the first time in months, the brownstone smelled of possibility, sage stuffing, not suspicion. Yet shadows clung. A letter arrived mid-November, postmarked Buffalo. You think it's over? The truth about Richard isn't buried. Dig deeper. A friend. Unsigned, but the scrawl screamed Voss's circle, resentful remnants. I hired Marco again, this time for digital deep dive. What he unearthed chilled deeper than December winds. Richard hadn't just covered for Ethan. The embezzlement? A smokescreen. Real crime. Insider trading. Tips from a crooked analyst ring. Richard took the hit to shield me. I'd greenlit a deal on bad intel from a friend at a gala, naivete costing millions if exposed. Me. The matriarch? The martyr? No, the fool. I'd borne Ethan's sin, but mine was the root, hidden by Richard's sacrifice. Lila found out through Voss, used it as leverage, but never pulled the trigger. Mercy? Or madness? Confrontation came Black Friday, amid holiday hordes on 5th. I dragged her to the rooftop of Bergdorf's city, a chaotic quilt below. You knew. About Richard. About me. Her face paled, wind whipping blonde strands. Voss bragged. Said it was the Hargrove Achilles. I held it back. For Ethan. Truth or tactic? The line blurred, forcing choice. Expose the full rot, crumble the legacy, or seal it anew, complicit forever. Partners? She asked, voice small against the gale. Devil's bargain. But in that perch above the frenzy, I nodded. Till it breaks us. December hit like a freight train. Blizzards dumping snow on the avenues, turning Manhattan into a gritty snow globe where secrets hid easier under whitewash. The brownstone hunkered against the cold, its radiators hissing like confidants. But inside, the air crackled with unspoken pacts. Lila had moved back in temporarily, her probation mandating family supervision. But we both knew it was more. A tense truce. Two queens circling the same board, Ethan the reluctant king. Mornings, we'd convene in the kitchen, me in cashmere robes, Her in yoga pants that screamed reformed but relatable. Coffee brewed strong, bagels toasted crisp, and we dissect the day's battles over the times. Donor defections, IRS audits sniffing the foundation's edges. We pivot, she'd say, markers squeaking on the whiteboard I'd installed post-scandal. Refocus on micro-lending for single moms. Your pet project, Diana. Humanizes us. Smart. She was a natural, flipping from foe to fixer with the ease of a Wall Street pivot. Ethan watched wary, his therapy homework a stack of journals on the counter, gratitude lists, boundary exercises. This feels normal, he'd murmur at night, curled against me on the couch during TCM marathons. Bogart in the Maltese Falcon, irony thick as fog. Normalcy's a lie we tell ourselves, though. The letter from Buffalo Nod, a splinter under skin. Marco's digs yielded fragments. Richard's resignation file, sealed but cracked open by a hacker pal. Emails hinting at the insider ring. Names redacted but familiar. 1. Harlan Crow, my friend, from that fateful gala. Now a recluse in the Hamptons. Parkinson's turning his hands to tremors. I drove out solo. The Mercedes slicing slush on 495. Radio crooning Springsteen. Born to Run. Anthem for escapes that never stick. Crow's estate loomed like a faded Gatsby dream. Manicured hedges gone wild. Driveway crunching gravel under tires. He met me on the porch, wheelchair-bound, eyes milky but sharp. Diana Hargrove, the ghost who won't stay buried. We talked in his library, fire roaring against the chill, brandy warming palms. Richard covered for you, he wheezed, coughing into a monogrammed hanky. That deal, your tip was gold, but the feds were closing. He ate the blame to keep you clean. Why? The word escaped, raw. Love, darling. And legacy. The Hargroves don't fall, they fold tense. A chuckle, phlegmy. But Voss? He sniffed it out years later, blackmailed the remnants. Lila was his latest mule. Mule. The word diminished her, but fit, dragged into muck by ambition's leash. Driving back, skyline piercing dusk like spears, I wrestled the revelation. My sin, not Ethan's alone. Telling him? Shattering. Keeping silent? Poison. Lila sensed the shift that night. Over takeout tie in the dining room. Candlelight flickering on Waterford crystal. You look like you've seen a poltergeist, she quipped, chopsticks poised over pad CEW. I laid it out, bare. The truth about Richard, my hand in the rot. Her fork clattered. Jesus, Diana. And you carried that for him. Choices, I said, sipping Riesling sharp as regret. Like yours with Voss. She leaned back, chair scraping oak. Fair. But here's the flip. I didn't pull the trigger on you. Could've. Told the DA everything. Walked free. Why didn't you? Eyes met, unflinching. Ethan. And you. You're a bitch, but an honest one. Reminds me of the mom I wished for. Vulnerability's currency. Rare, volatile. We clinked glasses, packed deepening into something perilously like alliance. But tension simmered. Ethan caught whispers, his journal entries turning accusatory. Mom and Lila, thick as thieves. Am I the joke? The climax crested mid-month, at the Foundation's winter gala, scaled down, but stakes sky-high. Venue. The Rainbow Room, Art Deco splendor atop Rockefeller Center, city lights a diamond sprawl below. I wore black velvet, Lila emerald silk. Contrasting queens, Ethan in tux like a boy at prom. Donors milled, jazz quartets swinging Take the A Train, but undercurrents roiled. Whispers of the scandal, eyes darting like minnows. Harlan's name surfaced mid-toast, some asshat from the old firm, 3 sheets to the wind, slurring near the bar. Hargrove's queen bee? She orchestrated the whole '09 heist. Richard just the fall guy. Gasps rippled, heads turning. Lila stiffened beside me, hand on my arm, support or restraint. Ethan paled, champagne flute trembling. Mom. The room spun, a vortex of judgment. Controversial crux. Confess here, torch the empire, or deny? Damn the liar? No right path. Truth a double-edged sword, slicing giver and receiver. I stepped forward, mic snatched from the bandstand, voice amplified like thunder. Rumors die hard, don't they? But facts? They endure. Pause for breath, crowd hushed. 15 years ago, mistakes were made. By all of us. Richard shouldered them, not for glory, but family. Tonight, we honor that. Full disclosure to the board, restitution fund for victims. Murmurs swelled. Shock, sympathy, skepticism. The drunk gawked, deflated. Lila's grip tightened, whisper hot. Bold. Stupid, but bold. Ethan's eyes shone, pride, relief. But as applause trickled, a shadow loomed. Voss's lawyer, lurking by the exits, tablet in hand. Leak, he sneered, thrusting it forward. Unredacted emails, my name bold in the betrayal. Pandemonium. Flashes popped, questions barked. Lila yanked me aside, into the service elevator, dinging descent amid chaos. We fight this. Together. Elevator to hell. I muttered, but nodded. Ethan piled in, face set. Blood, after all. Downstairs, paparazzi swarmed like locusts, but Marco's town car idled curbside, engine purring escape. We piled in, tires spinning slush toward the bridge. Where to? Driver grunted. Home, I said, but home felt fractured, a mosaic of mended cracks. That night, barricaded in the brownstone, we war-roomed, lawyers on speed dial, PR spins drafted on laptops glowing blue. Lila paced, fierce. We own the narrative. Press her tomorrow. Your story, Diana. Raw. Ethan nodded, but doubt flickered. What if they take it all? The trust, the house. Then we start over, I said, hand on his shoulder. Like immigrants. Like Americans. Dawn broke gray, coffee bitter, but resolve steel. The twist? In the frenzy, Lila's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown. Knew about Richard. Kept quiet. Debt paid? H.C. Harlan. His final flip. Guardian ghost. Tipping scales. We rolled the dice at the presser, for season's ballroom packed cheek to jowl. I took the podium, lights blinding, heart pounding like a jury's gavel. Ladies and gentlemen, the Hargrove name isn't spotless. But it's human. The confession poured, my naivete, Richard's shield, the cover-up's cost. Gasps, nods, a smattering of claps. Lila flanked me, statement crisp. I stumbled. But redemption's not a right. It's earned. Ethan spoke last, voice cracking, family's messy. But it's ours. Questions flew, probing, vicious, but we parried, united front. By close, the tide turned. Headlines shifting from scandal to confession, donors trickling back. Yet the tension lingered, a low hum. Over eggnog that eve, Ethan pulled me aside. You and Lila. It's working. For now, I admitted. But trust? That's the real gamble. He hugged me, fierce. Then let's not fold. Christmas Eve dawned brittle, frost etching fractals on the windows like nature's barbed wire. The brownstone smelled of pine and possibility, tree trimmed in the parlor, lights twinkling defiant against the gloom outside. But under the cheer, fissures ran deep, the presser's aftershocks rippling through board meetings and bank statements, the foundation teetering on a knife's edge between redemption and ruin. Lila had thrown herself into the fray, a whirlwind of spreadsheets and schmoozing, lunches at Luke Bernardine with skittish donors, evenings cold-calling alumni from her law days. We're not victims, she'd declare over late-night Merlot, feet tucked under on the velvet sectional. We're phoenixes, gaudy, but we rise. Ethan laughed at that, genuine, rare, his color returning, shadows lifting from therapy's grind. You're both terrifying, he'd say, kissing her temple, then mine. A triad, uneasy but enduring, bound by shared scars. Me? I watched, wary cat by the fire. The pact held, but controversy clung like smoke. Whispers in society columns, Hargrove heir's bride. Redemption or ruse? Cousin Beatrice's frosty Christmas cards. Blood may be thicker, but it still stains. And Harlan's text? A loose thread, tugging at sleep. I'd sent flowers to his hospice. Lilies, ironic for a funeral scent, but no reply. Ghosts demand tribute, eventually. The holiday itself was a masterclass in make-believe. Caterers from Dean and DeLuca delivering goose and fixings, carols crooning from hidden speakers, gifts wrapped in silk under the tree. Ethan proposed a toast at dusk, crystal flutes raised amid the glow, to fractures. They let the light in. Poetic. But as we clinked, my cell vibrated. Marco, terse, trouble. D-Ace reopening 09. Harlan talked before he coded. Your name's lead. The flute slipped, wine staining the hem of my gown like accusation. Lila caught it, eyes sharp. What? I excused myself to the study, door clicking shut on the cheer. Marco's voice crackled. Old man's confession on tape. Your deal, the tip. Immunity for Voss's crew if they flip on you. It's chess, Mrs. H. And you're the queen in check. Check. The word echoed, a dirge. I hung up, sank into Richard's old desk chair, leather creased from decades of deals. Drawers held relics. His fountain pen, a faded photo of us in the Adirondacks, young and unscarred. What would he do? Fold the tent or burn it down? Lila knocked soft, entered without weight. Instinct now, not intrusion. Diana? Talk. I did, the floodgates creaking. Harlan's visit, the full weight of my sin. Her face hardened, not shock, but steel. We fight. Subpoena the tape, claim coercion. Harlan was dying, delirium's a defense. And if it sticks? Prison. The trust dissolves, Ethan's adrift. She knelt, hands on my knees, intimate, unexpected. Then we adapt. I've got savings, contacts. Worst case, we vanish. Costa Rica, beach bars, start a shelter for expat strays. A laugh bubbled, absurd. You? Sand in your Louboutins. Barefoot if needed. Her grin flashed, conspirator. But we don't lose. Not like this. Ethan joined, drawn by voices, piecing the storm. Mom, is it true? Dad covered for you. Not. Tears pricked. Rare, unwelcome. Your grandfather's legacy was smoke. I lit the match. He paced, fury flickering, then deflated into a hug, boyish, bone deep. Doesn't change us. You're still you. The absolution stung sweeter than scotch. We war-roomed till midnight. Calls to my shark attorney in D.C., drafts of preemptive briefs. Lila flipped scripts like a pro, counter-narratives painting Harlan as grudge holder, Voss as puppet master. Make them chase shadows, she murmured, laptop glowing on her lap. Dawn brought carolers on the stoop, their off-key silent night a mocking serenade. The DA's office called at 10, meeting requested, to discuss voluntary surrender. Voluntary, as if chains came gift-wrapped. We met in a conference room downtown, sterile glass box overlooking the harbor, ferries chugging like resigned beasts. The prosecutor, a whip-thin brunette named Reyes, laid it out clinical. Charges pending, securities fraud, conspiracy. Tapes damning, Mrs. Hargrove. But cooperate, and we shave time. Community service, maybe. Lila, across the table in power armor, leaned in. Delirium, as I said. Plus, new evidence. Voss's notes framing it as payback. She slid a folder, Marco's handiwork, forged timestamps, subtle but seismic. Reyes's eyes narrowed, but interest sparked. Interesting. We'll review. We left dangling, tension a taut wire. Back home, Ethan cracked, stormed the kitchen, slamming cabinets. This is insane. We confess, rebuild, and it circles back? What's the point? The point, Lila snapped, rare edge, is survival. Your mom's not rotting in Bedford Hills. And you? Probation princess, playing hero. The air thickened, words weapons. I intervened, voice calm as Arctic. Enough. We're in the muck together. Or not at all. Silence stretched, brittle. Then Ethan deflated. Sorry. Just. Scared. We all are, Lila said, softer, bridging the gap with a hand on his arm. Flip again, from adversary to anchor. The verdict dropped New Year's Eve, confetti cannons primed in Times Square, but irrelevant to our vigil. Reyes called. Tapes tainted, Harlan's meds muddied recall. Case dismissed, but watch your step, Hargrove. Ghosts bite. Relief crashed, title. We celebrated quiet. Champagne on the terrace, fireworks blooming over the river like defiant stars. Ethan kissed Lila under mistletoe pilfered from the tree, then me. Cheek, paternal. To us, he toasted. But the final twist whispered in the wind. An envelope under the door next morning, postmarked Buffalo. Inside, Harlan's will, bequeathing his shares in the old firm to me, with a note, pay the piper or dance alone. That circle, Diana. Choose wisely. Choice. The eternal American riddle. No clean wins, just calculated gambles. I burned it in the sink, ashes swirling down the drain like forgotten sins. The foundation stabilized, Lila co-director now, her cunning bent to good. Ethan thrived, a quiet venture in green tech, roots his own. Ending? Not fairy tale, not funeral march. Just life. You am. Tense, laced with what-ifs. Lila and I, allies wary. Betrayal scar fades, but it itches. And in quiet moments, staring at the Hudson's oily flow, I wonder, was revenge the plan or just the prelude? The river doesn't answer. It just keeps running.